Vienna held its breath as if the city itself understood what was about to unfold. The Wiener Stadthalle throbbed under a dome of white light, a low metallic hum rising from the stands like the overture to an opera. This wasn't a final so much as a reckoning, two careers bending toward the same point in time. Jannik Sinner walked out first, a pale blaze of composure, shoulders squared, gaze flat and untroubled. He didn't look left or right. His warm-up strokes were clean as glass. No wasted motion, no dramatic flourish, just the click of strings finding the center again and again, until the sound itself became a metronome. Alexander Zverev followed with longer strides, chin lifted, the air around him charged. His shadow looked larger than his frame, stretching across the court as if to claim territory before a ball was even struck. He rolled his shoulders, bounced on his toes, cracked his knuckles, a body waking into battle. The crowd split into colors and syllables. Forza, Jannik. Calm, Sasha. Two currents of electricity braiding into one. The coin flipped, the toss chosen, the ritual of symmetry. Then quiet. Ready? Play. The first exchange did not belong to nerves. It belonged to intent, 20-plus strikes that mapped the shape of the evening. Sinner's feet were whispers, his racket path a ruler edge. He didn't hit harder so much as earlier, taking the ball on the rise and pressing Zverev into narrow corridors. Zverev answered with torque and height, shouldering the rally off his backhand wing and then slamming a forehand that seemed to rip a seam in the air. Sinner held serve with a clinical out-wide slice and a backhand down the line that shaved paint. Zverev answered with a love hold that detonated 3 aces in a row. 1-all, and the room already felt smaller. Their philosophies began to show in the small places. On neutral balls, Sinner stepped forward like a carpenter measuring a cut. On half-chances, Zverev sprang like a striker through a gap. Sinner's return position crept inside the baseline, hands quiet, eyes unblinking. Zverev responded by tilting his serve patterns, body, tee, wide, until Sinner's stillness had to choose. He chose right more often than not. At 3-3, the match found its first cliff. Zverev muscled a forehand to earn 15-40 on Sinner's serve. The Italian smothered the danger with a play he'd rehearsed in the dark. First ball heavy to the backhand, second ball brisk to the forehand pocket, third ball a knife to the line. Deuce, advantage, hold. He didn't roar. He blinked once, wiped his brow with the back of his wrist, and walked to the towel like a man pleased with the proof of a theory. Zverev's reply was more visceral, an ace, a snarled jaw that cracked across the rafters, a forehand cross that bent late to kiss the sideline. He stalked the baseline between points as if pacing the deck of a ship in stormlight, the floorboards pitching, the horizon tilting, the destination fixed. By 5-5, every seat vibrated with the tension. A double mini-drama unfolded. Zverev carved the score to 0-30 on Sinner's serve with 2 thunderous returns. Sinner slid a serve down the tee that veered like a late-breaking pitch, then feathered a drop shot so indifferent to gravity the ball seemed to regret bouncing. 30-all. Zverev bought set point with a backhand that ran the tape and stayed. Sinner cancelled it with a first strike pattern he'd kept in reserve. Serve body, backhand line, forehand to the empty sky. 6-all. Tie break. It started with mathematics. Sinner drew first blood by pinning Zverev's backhand to the corner until the German's stance narrowed, then snapping a backhand up the line to seize the mini-break. Zverev answered with courage, serve and volley behind second serve, a half-volley scooped from his shoelaces that curled and died. 3-3. The crowd's noise changed tone, no longer applause but the sound of steel grinding. At 5-5 they hit a rally that felt like a confession. Sinner flipped height into depth, depth into angle, refusing to be the first to blink. Zverev found a forehand on the run that would have ended most exchanges. Sinner's reply arrived early and flat, a punctuation mark instead of a sentence. 6-5, set point. He tossed. The motion was one line from backswing to follow through, the ball carving the tee, the return short, the inside-out forehand to the vacant deuce corner sealing it by the width of a fingernail. Sinner didn't strut. He set the racket across his knees and stared at the string bed as if the map of the evening were etched there. Across the net, Zverev stood with his jaw tight and his eyes colder, absorbing the fact of a near-perfect set lost by inches. When he nodded toward his box, it wasn't surrender. It was a promise. The lights seemed to burn whiter. The second set walked to the baseline with them. The second set didn't begin so much as detonate. Zverev stalked to the line with a new voltage in his stride, shoulders rolling like a sprinter under stadium lights. First serve, a flat bolt that split the tee and rattled the back wall. Second serve, body, heavy, unreturnable. He held in 2 minutes and barked a guttural calm that seemed to shake loose dust from the rafters. Sinner's reply was almost ascetic. First ball patterns, depth measured in millimeters, a pair of backhands welded to the sideline. 1-all, and already the tempo had accelerated from chess to street fight. Rallies lengthened and sharpened. Zverev drove his forehand with a ferocity that bent the ball late, sending it knifing into Sinner's backhand hip. The Italian's counter was geometry. Take time, trim angles, steal steps. At 2-2, a rally bled to 29 blows, both men twisting, sliding, resetting, until Zverev finally broke pattern with a drop shot that died like a secret. The German raised a finger, not boast, but signal, then stalked to the towel with the look of someone who'd found a door in a locked room. Pressure mounted in layers. Sinner faced 15-40, erased both with serves that brushed the paint and a forehand that swerved midair as if magnetized. Deuce, ace, hold. Zverev nodded once, filed it away, and came again. He widened his court with a heavier kick up and out of Sinner's strike zone, then crashed back down the middle to jam him. The tactic paid on the 12th point of the next game. An early backhand from Sinner floated a hair long, and with it the first break of the match arrived like a snapped cable. 4-2 Zverev, his steps suddenly louder on the hardwood. The arena leaned toward him. German flags trembled, Italian flags stiffened in resistance. Zverev's box stayed stone-faced, a fortress of restraint that seemed to fuel him. He cracked another hold for 5-3, 2 aces, 1 reflex half-volley winner, 1 body serve that handcuffed Sinner into a block. The set was now a math problem with one unknown. Could he serve it out? Serving for it, Zverev looked both larger and more human. Jaw set, breath measured, hands brief on the strings. He started with an ace, then framed a forehand on a routine +1 and muttered into his wristband. 15-15. Sinner moved in on the next second serve and knifed a return to the shoelaces. Zverev shoveled it up and in, then speared the forehand into the open court. 30-15. A body serve drew a defensive chip, and Zverev leapt on it, pounding through the backhand corner for 40-15, double set point. The stadium stood, the sound rising to a single pulsing note. Sinner stepped inside the baseline as if into a lens. Zverev went for the dagger down the tee. Sinner read it, sent back a low, skidding slice that refused to rise. The rally flipped in tone, no longer violence but interrogation. Sinner found a seam and threaded a backhand down the line that grazed chalk. 40-30. On the next point, Zverev chose wide. Sinner lunged, met it almost behind him, and somehow reset neutral with a looping, spiteful rainbow. They traded height for height, patience for patience, until Zverev stamped his weight on a forehand and watched it sail a fingernail long. Deuce, the scoreboard suddenly neon. What followed felt like a season in miniature. Advantage Zverev, erased by a return winner that blurred across his laces. Advantage Sinner after a cat-quick exchange at net, cancelled by a 220 km/h missile. Deuce again. Then came the breath Zverev needed, a serve that kissed the sideline and skittered, painting the tee so fine the line judge's arm stuttered before rising. Set point 3. He didn't hesitate. Same spot. Same sound. Ace. Set. Zverev. He didn't celebrate so much as exhale, head tipped back, eyes closed for a heartbeat as the roar broke over him. When he looked down, The glance toward his box was less triumph than re-entry. Back to level, back to pure contest. Across the net, Sinner brushed his strings with his fingertips as if checking the tension of an argument. He rose from the chair without looking at the scoreboard and did what he had done all night, walked to the line as if to a task he respected. The match had opened as theorem and counter-theorem. It now moved into a third act that promised something beyond logic. The air inside the Wiener Stadthalle felt denser, the lights a fraction brighter, the court both smaller and infinite. 2 hours in, nothing separated them but decisions, the timing of a step, the courage of a line, the nerve to trust the shot you've built your year upon. The chairs emptied, the towels dropped, the crowd stood as one. The decider waited like a closed door with both names on it. By the start of the final set, the air inside the Wiener Stadthalle had turned electric and heavy, as if the oxygen itself carried memory. Every sound, the squeak of soles, the thud of a ball, landed sharper. Zverev and Sinner were no longer playing for Vienna or for points. They were playing for truth. Who would blink first? Who would break the silence that had grown between them after 2 sets of brilliance and punishment? Sinner opened the set serving, calm as a metronome. His motions looked machine-cut, almost ritualistic. Toss, rise, slice through. The rhythm steadied him, forced the noise into the background. Zverev, across the net, crouched low, the shadow of a smile cutting across his face, not arrogance, but understanding. He knew what this was now. Not tennis. Survival. They held through the first games, 1-1, 2-2, each testing the other's pulse. Rallies stretched past 25 shots, both players reaching deeper than their lungs allowed. Every return came back heavy, precise, defiant. At 3-3, the match crossed from contest into mythology. Sinner's shirt clung to his back. Zverev's breath came through gritted teeth. Neither spoke, not even to themselves. The crowd had gone almost reverent, whispering between points, afraid to disturb the fragile balance. Then came the rally, the one people would talk about years later. 43 shots of violence and grace. Zverev pounding cross-court, Sinner retrieving with impossible geometry, turning defense into invention. When the Italian finished it with a backhand pass that shaved the net and died in the corner, even Zverev applauded, one tap of the racket on the strings, acknowledging the madness they'd both created. But destiny doesn't stay still for long. At 4-3, on Sinner's serve, Zverev finally cracked the rhythm. A pair of forehand returns landed deeper than before, and on the third, he ripped one so flat it cut the line. Break point. He stepped inside, took the return early, and finished the next ball with a roar, a primal sound that ripped through Vienna. 5-3, the German ahead, the match teetering on the edge. The crowd rose, the roof shaking. Zverev to serve for the title. His hands trembled just enough to betray the pressure. First serve, long. Second, in, heavy to the body. Sinner's return came back low, wicked. The rally stretched, faster, shorter, tighter. Then a flash of orange. Sinner's forehand lasered past him down the line. 0-15. Zverev exhaled. Next serve, ace, center. 15-15. Another rally. Brutal. Zverev clipped the tape. The ball stayed in. 30-15. Then came the moment, the small hinge upon which everything would turn. A double fault. 30-30. The tension cracked the air. Sinner's eyes narrowed. He wasn't breathing fast. He was waiting. Zverev tossed the ball again. Wide serve. Sinner guessed right. Return deep, backhand corner. Zverev's forehand just missed long. Break point. The Italian crowd found its voice again, red flags rising like sparks. Zverev walked to the back fence, eyes closed, trying to erase the noise. He served, perfect down the tee. Sinner's return floated, touched the net cord, and fell dead on the German side. Break. The arena erupted like thunder. 5-4. Sinner back in it. From that point, the match was no longer governed by tactics. It was instinct, muscle, and something almost spiritual. 5-5. 6-6. Another tie-break. The scoreboard lights flickered like the heartbeat of the city itself. Each point was a life lived and lost. Sinner struck first, 3-1, then Zverev leveled, 3-3. The rallies became smaller worlds, compressed, perfect, brutal. At 5-5, they traded blows that defied fatigue, both running on fumes and willpower. Then came the final act. 6-5, match point, Sinner to serve. The stadium froze. Even the lights seemed to dim, as if holding their breath. He bounced the ball once, twice, tossed it high. The motion was slow, deliberate, endless. The contact was pure, a single clean sound. The ball kissed the line wide to Zverev's backhand. He reached, stretched, but it was gone. Gone before he could even move. Silence. Then explosion. Sinner fell to his knees, head tilted back to the lights, as the roar broke like a wave over him. Zverev stood still, racket hanging loose at his side, eyes distant. There was no shame, no collapse, only exhaustion and a strange peace. He walked to the net first. They shook hands without words, two soldiers after the same war, each recognizing the other's scars. The trophy ceremony was subdued, beautiful in its simplicity. The lights painted both men in gold. Sinner lifted the cup, eyes shining not with pride but clarity. This wasn't just another title. It was affirmation, proof that patience and precision could outlast raw fire. Zverev clapped, chin raised. Redemption postponed, not denied. Outside, Vienna's night unfolded under a cold drizzle. Fans lingered around the arena, unwilling to leave the echo of what they'd witnessed. Inside, somewhere in the quiet of the locker rooms, the sound of that final serve still lingered, clean, final, eternal. Two men had played beyond victory, beyond defeat. And in that fragile silence after the storm, the sport itself felt reborn.